Andy Johnson, Minnesota State University. We are looking at performance-based standards, but let me say this again. Please let our children read. How can you learn how to read if you don't get to practice reading actual real books for pleasure or to get information? We should call it reading practice instead of reading class. Nancy Atwell says 70 to 80% of all reading classes should be spent actually engaged in authentic reading. 20 to 30% at most should be in skills instruction. We tend to get that mixed up. Short video, this is part 2 on using journals as learning logs across the curriculum. You can use learning logs in other classes, in science, social studies, health class, across the curriculum, and I will show you how. You want to keep them in a milk carton or on a shelf someplace, again, so these don't become lost in a desk, crinkled up, or pages ripped out for this, that, and the other thing. And it makes the learning log as something sacred. If you are in a class like a middle school where they come and go, or an elementary school, you can put them on the desk and students pick them up as they enter class. And again, they leave them there. That's important for a number of reasons, again, so they don't become lost. But as a teacher, I get a much better sense of how my students are processing information by looking at their learning logs. If you want a writing prompt, put it on the board before class. For example, today's class is about the water cycle. The rain cycle. I'm going to ask you 3 important things, list them at the end of class. Bad example, but I was thinking off the top of my head. There are 3 types of prompts that you can use. A 3I prompt. What do you think describe an interesting or important idea? Open-ended. Personal relevancy prompt. What do you think is interesting? How is it connected to your life? When in your life have you encountered this? Making those personal connections. Personal metaphor prompt. An example. We're talking about the Civil War. In your life, what have you been at war at? What are you fighting with? All right, that's a metaphor. An artistic prompt where you ask them to draw a picture or create a poem using words in the text. A poem is an arrangement of words to describe a feeling. This is an interesting one. In a textbook, use only words found there to describe something, or describe words to describe something important from the chapter, or wide open. What do you want to tell me about that? Those are 5 kinds of prompts. All right, how do you respond? You want students ideally to respond to each other's prompt. A partner oral response is find a buddy, share your ideas. So they're just sharing them out loud. Small group oral response. In a small group, read your journal, what you wrote in your journal, or tell about your response. And this can be done at the end of class. This is a great sort of review kind of activity. Trade and respond. Here, you trade journals and you actually write on the journal. And you might have to actually list 2 or 3 types of response. Tell about an interesting idea. What do you think when you read this response? What would you like to add? What questions do you have? And then whole class. You might pick 2 or 3 students at the end of class to share their journal responses. And never more than 3 because it gets just way too long for people to sit and listen. Please let our children read. Please.